What's going on, everyone? I am Knight, your resident noob dungeon master, and welcome to my series where I talk about the campaign that I'm currently running and my takeaways to help me and other noobs like me. This week will have been my 7th session of DMing ever. So let's talk about something that's a little tougher to talk about, I think, in my opinion. So there was two ways that I was going to kind of reflect on this week's session. First thing I'm going to do is just going to say, spoiler warning. If you have not seen the episode, go check out the episode up there and then come back and watch. This one is going to be a little less of a narrative of the episode as some of the other ones have been, and a lot more talking about the themes, which I think is good. That's kind of what we're here for. There's two main things that I want to talk about this week. One is being safe when it comes to boss battles, and two is being safe when it comes to your party. So let's break down this first concept, boss battle. This entire week, my group has been working their way through Thunder Tree to get to the dragon, the big boss bad of the area. And the agreement they have with Rydoth, who is the druid of the area, who is their main quest giver of this whole shenanigery, is to go and make the dragon leave or to kill the dragon and get themselves a guide to the Wave Echo Cave, which is kind of like their main place they have to go to. The thing about where my players are right now at level 4 is that if the dragon is able to successfully land it's just its breath attack, it could TPK my entire party, with the exception of my barbarian who has resistance, as long as he's raging already. If he's not raging already, it could TPK my entire party. I talked about this last week. It's about trusting your players, it's about creating a good narrative, it's about having a fun game. But in order to make it fun, I think there has to be some stakes in it, right? You're attached emotionally to your character. Part of the thrill of playing D&D is being in situations where you don't know the outcome. Your player could die. Your players could get hurt. Bad things could happen. And while I get that, this adventure thus far still has our group kind of forming these bonds. They're a new group of players. It's a new party. And going through a TPK right now would not be something that would be beneficial to anybody because there's so much invested in these characters and I want to see these characters going on. So what I struggle with is, as a dungeon master, providing that level of challenge. Do I include a certain amount of plot armor to give my group a chance to get out of it, especially if they've already gotten themselves into a situation that maybe is a little too hairy for what they can handle, or maybe it isn't. The entire time that we've been going through these encounters, I've been throwing things at my party that I thought were going to be a challenge for them, and they keep completely obliterating these challenges. Now, if I'm to play the big boss bad, the big boss bad is supposed to be a challenge. If I'm not throwing everything that big boss bad has at the party, am I really doing the party justice? These are questions that I feel like, as a brand new DM, I don't have a way to answer right now, and I want one. I want that go-to guide that says, you know what, it's okay to just throw poison breath at your party and they'll all take damage and die and it's fine. I don't know how to handle that. Especially because if I'm thinking about, and I don't want to get spoilery for my group who I know watch these videos, I don't want to get to a place where I have to build in something to where it's a contingency in case everybody does die. But maybe I can. I'm the dungeon master. I can do whatever I want, right? Where's the point where you can play it safe with a boss battle, still have it be engaging, and I don't want to say rig it so your players win, but rig it so they have a chance. I'm trying to find these ways. If you guys have links to other resources for me, or if you guys have comments and experience with this that I don't have, I would love to hear from you, because this is one topic where I kind of get nervous. I want to create a challenge for the group. I want to make the game fun and exciting, but I also don't want to unnecessarily TPK my party if I don't have to. And that just sounds weird to say. Do I have to? Is it really up to me to TPK them? Is it really up to them? They've gotten themselves in this situation now, and the enemy is what the enemy is. Do we just roll with it and see what happens? Thoughts. Next is talking about playing it safe with your party and party safety. So there's a bunch of things that have gone around, and I've seen the resources where it's kind of like the safety guide where you have your players kind of tell you, hey, what are their boundaries for situations? What are their boundaries for triggers? We did not do that with my group. I did not feel, me being a first-time DM, that I would be exploring different themes that might be heavier, might push people's buttons. Again, this is why the stuff exists. I should have just used it. And I thought, hey, we're going to be fine. We're just going to have a nice lighthearted module. I'm not the one that's coming up with these stories, so hopefully it's just easy themes to be able to go through and, play the module and have fun with the game, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Well, I kind of threw my own script out on that one because I'm the storyteller, and as me, I like the drama. I like stakes. I like putting my party in situations that are going to push them as characters and also tie into them as characters. Plus, my party came in with characters that are dealing with some pretty heavy themes, right? Godoruk, my half-orc, has his parents killed, and he was abandoned, basically. I have a changeling who has been touched by the Shadowfell and was kind of ostracized by his own group of people. You've got, a pair of elves that have been dealing with loss and displacement. And then you have a bard who's looking for his father. There's all of these different dynamics that are now coming into play that are not light things. And if I'm trying to create plot hooks for my characters that are meaningful and kind of forward their character progression, they can't be, hey, every time we go to a tavern, we have a good time. So this week, I put my players in an interesting situation. In the module, there's a section, or there's an encounter in Thundertree with these dragon cultists. And the module guidelines are that the main leader of the cultists is a younger guy who is kind of has a lust for power, and he's kind of inherently more of an evil character and is willing to do what's necessary to kind of treat with this dragon and gain its favor. Whereas the rest of the guys aren't so much. In my group hears that they're treating with dragons, or want to treat with the dragon, and pretty much goes in like gangbusters and starts to treat it like you would a normal encounter. Let's just go kill the bad guys. And how this scenario played out was incredible, but also extremely heavy. Basically, our bard used a shatter spell on a room with 4 people in it. 2 of them were sleeping, 2 of them were not. It killed the 2 people that were sleeping. The 2 people that were not sleeping were still alive. My druid changed into a bear. It breaks their way through the turns into a bear, breaks her way through the front door that was barred, and has 2 guys standing there. Now, to my party's credit, they're not murder hobos. They did not go and just immediately start trying to kill everything, but that spell did kill 2 of them. And if you can come at it from a cultist perspective, these guys are there to treat with a dragon. They're not messing with anybody. There's no one else there. They don't think that anyone's there. They're not there to harm anybody. They're just there to treat with this dragon. Now, does that make them inherently bad? Does that make them inherently evil? Or are they just misguided, stupid people that think that they're going to win the favor of a dragon? So my group barges in, and I gave my group kind of a cue that maybe these aren't the gruff kind of bad guys that we're used to dealing with in the red brands, because they did try and knock on the door once to see if they could lure them outside. And I was very polite in my response. Hey, we're doing very important things in here. I can't come and be with you, pretty lady. Changeling, who transformed into a pretty lady version of a banshee. That happened. Anyway, so I tried to give that cue, but there's no other way for me to say, hey, not all these guys are bad. Maybe you should try and talking with them again than what I did. And so we get into the encounter more, and they break inside and everybody's inside, and now there's a standoff. Like, what are you guys doing here? And I basically had the leader of these guys go into a defensive mode, as you probably would expect if you were in that situation. We didn't think there's anybody else here. Why are you attacking us? We haven't hurt anybody. We haven't done anything. Who are you? And the group kind of was like, what do we do? And on top of that, one of my characters, Ashin, who is a ranger and is kind of obsessed with revenge and has no problem with killing evil things, took out the leader after questioning and was not satisfied with his answers. And that was meant to be in the RP of him being kind of more or less possessed by Cheverash and things. And so it's not wholly unexpected for him to maybe try and do something like that. But we basically had an evil act. Like, they had kind of surrendered at that point, and then my player killed this guy. So how do we handle that? You know, our bard in character who had cast the shatter spell was devastated because he realized that these weren't your standard evil characters, right? They actually let 3 of them go and flee back to their town, where they had like, oh, we saw a dragon flying and we thought that it was a sign that we need to come serve the dragon. Right? Well, yeah, they're stupid, but they're not evil. And so the bard in character is like, man, like I can't believe I did that. You know, kind of lingered in the building after everyone had gone and trying to process what he had just done, especially given the fact that it was the first time he'd cast that spell. The RP of the moment was spectacular. The mark on the party afterwards was something that you couldn't expect. As everybody left the building and kind of walked together towards the next area, I almost didn't want to trigger any more encounters. Like, there were twig blights, there were zombies, and they did clear out another building of ash zombies, but it felt so hollow after that moment. And it made me think how precious and dangerous some of these types of moments can be, and some of these themes where I don't feel that that was the wrong RP decision in the moment, but I also wasn't thinking about the lasting effect of what that was going to have on my party. And after, when we had kind of a debrief, our Bard Bamir Cataract, he kind of brought up, hey, you know, it's an important thing to note, because he wasn't trying to chastise the situation or anything like that. But he said, note from experience, and I take his experience heavily because he's a very experienced player. He goes, you know, we as a party are still young. We as a group of players are still young in some of these situations. And while it's interesting to RP some of these themes, and while I don't have a problem RPing these themes, we have to be careful, not just as ourselves about what we're taking on and what our own personal limits are, but also as a party, not putting ourselves in positions where the party doesn't have a reason to stay together anymore. And I was like, oh, damn. He's got a point. He's got a point. Because as characters, if something so polarizing were to happen, so out of alignment, and I did instruct the party that this was going to be a good campaign, so to be a good aligned character, that if something like that were to happen, where we did have one of our party members shoot what was basically a defenseless person at that point, or someone that had already basically surrendered, someone that the party viewed as someone of innocence, that might be enough to cause a rift within the group that couldn't be healed. That's bad. It's really bad. That's worse than having to fight a dragon that I don't know if they can beat or even stand up to. So it really got my wheels turning as to how do I present situations to the group that are not just important from an RP perspective, but are also important for the party. In the moment, I thought the decision to RP that as the module kind of instructed, where these guys were like, hey, we're kind of here, what are you doing, is one thing. Now that I reflect on that, maybe I should have just made that encounter, these are just bad guys, and it's okay to dispatch them. Because in the guise of the party, it would have been easier for the party to deal with that. even if there was one guy that was like, hey, you know, we're here to worship the dragon. You'll never stand up to the dragon. The dragon's better than you, blah, 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 blah. And just kind of leave it at that, where there's a lot less moral ambiguity about whether these guys were here doing something good or bad. And that's something I have to take to heart, because while I want to challenge my party, I don't want to put them in situations that are so precarious, that are so polarizing, that it would drive the party apart, that it would drive these characters apart. And it made me think of an entirely new dynamic as a dungeon master that I have to be careful of, and that is the party dynamic. Whereas I've been watching them grow as a party over the past 7 weeks and 7 sessions, I'm now having to deal with the real possibility that we have dynamics creating that are going to drive us apart instead of bring us together, and I need to find a way to correct that ASAP. So last thing is that I'm dealing with also my first time ever having one of my characters have to be on a vacation, right? One of my players is going to go well, it's not a vacation. They have to take care of a personal matter. They're going to be gone for a couple weeks. So how do I deal with that when they're in the middle? Basically, we left off at the end of a big boss fight. Obviously, we can't progress the main story. So what do? My idea was to go back and have some flashbacks of an origin stories of characters that are still going to be there, and find ways to work that into the story. But yeah, I guess this is a really short little point, is that now I have to deal with the fact that it's the first time I've had to deal with a player not being available. And we have ideas, but I kind of want to hear from you guys. What do you do as dungeon masters when you have players out? How do you proceed? Do you just kind of say that character went and did something different? Do you have someone else role play that character for a session? Do you do a different story completely? Do you just take a break? What do you guys do? I'd really like to hear from you. That being said, guys, thank you so much for hanging out and checking out this week's vlog. And again, always checking out the series and supporting the channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you get all the new and spicy videos from myself, and I can interact with yourself. Leave comments, please. I'd like to interact with you guys. There's a lot of good comments that pop up, and I do enjoy hearing your guys' feedback. And if you would like to catch us live, please make sure that you drop by the Twitch streams, twitch.tv/nighttide, at Saturdays around 10-11 p.m. Eastern, where we do the things. Love your faces, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.